It's time now for the political analysis of Fromm and Fuller. Al Fromm, former political advisor to President Bill Clinton, and Craig Fuller, former political advisor to both Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. Good morning, all. Al, I'd like to start with you. Over the last 24 hours, we have heard through the media that President-elect Trump and Elon Musk, working hand in hand, have been able to kill a compromise that would have prevented a government shutdown, which apparently will take place tomorrow unless something is worked out. This is extraordinary on so many levels. What's your take?
Well, just get ready. We're going to be on this roller coaster every day for the next 4 years. Speaker Johnson, who, is trying to be responsible, knows that the government will shut down tomorrow night if they don't pass a spending bill, a continuing resolution. Worked out a deal with the Democrats. I mean, he's got a 4-vote majority. He can't do it with only Republican votes because you always have some, particularly with people like your Andy Harris around, who will vote against even a sensible bill. And that gives Trump a perfect opportunity to cause chaos. I gather the issue that Trump wants to, or got him in was, you always have the arguments about Christmas tree bills because they always are Christmas tree bills. Anything you could think of gets thrown into these bills. But the real issue seems to be extension of the debt ceiling. Trump wants that on Biden's watch and not on his own, raising the debt ceiling. And, most presidents do, but it's really unusual for a president-elect to get involved. The consequences of, just think about the last week when what Trump's done on the economy while being out of office. First of all, he goes, I think it was on Meet the Press, where he was asked about grocery prices. Remember, in the campaign, he was going to get them down day one. And he said, maybe we won't be able to get them down. Well, that's the biggest promise he made to his supporters. So then yesterday, the Fed decided it had to slow its interest rate cuts because of likely inflation next year, the reigniting of inflation, and that's directly related to Trump and his tariff and his Secretary of Treasury incoming, who is a big fan of tariffs. Just yesterday, that cost all of us, I'm sure the three of us, but all of Trump's supporters who happen to have any money in the stock market, a pretty penny. And then they blow up the budget bill that's necessary to keep the government functioning. That's normal chaos, I guess. Look, I believe that the government needs to, that we need to trim government spending, and there are probably a lot of things in that bill that ought to be cut. But my guess is they don't have any damn idea about what they are. I cut my career in the Senate in the 1970s working on the Sunset Bill, which was the idea, co-sponsored incidentally by by Senator Muskie and the late Senator Bill Brock of Tennessee, longtime resident of Annapolis, Republican. And we wanted every program to be reenacted, reauthorized every 4 years. It was so complicated that we had to move to 10 years. But the idea was that if a program no longer worked, you wanted to get rid of it, and that's what we wanted to do, so you could have money for new priorities. But cutting the budget, it needs to be done thoughtfully, and it takes time. When we did that Sunset Bill, we went to the General Accounting Office, and we said, we need a list of every federal program. And they said, we can't do it. It's too complicated. Then when we created the Congressional Budget Office, we went back to the GAO and to the CBO, and they gave us a list. And the stuff they found was just absolutely incredible. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you that as smart as Elon Musk thinks he has no clue about how many dollars are spent directly to recipients that go around the authorizing committees that aren't authorized by law anymore. You know, there was more money when we found in the 1970s going on direct agricultural payments since the Civil War than were authorized by the Agriculture Committee. Look, the problem right now is that Trump is a chaos candidate. Nikki Haley was right. And he seems more interested in causing mischief than solving problems. We can only hope that once he gets in office and he has to bear responsibility, he'll be a little more interested in solving problems.
Craig, do you agree with that?
Well, I do agree with it. They are creating chaos in what is literally, you know, an unprecedented kind of set of events. You know, the fact that Congress couldn't come to terms on its appropriations and budget bills is what's forcing the need to keep the government functioning. And they're pushing it into March when, by the way, Donald Trump will be president. They've worked for weeks, almost around the clock in the last several days to get an agreement. These measures are never pretty because to get an agreement, you put lots of things in there in order to get the necessary votes to pass it. And they had the work done. They were going to leave for the Christmas holiday. When we're talking on Thursday morning, it was just a little more than 24 hours ago that Elon Musk at 4 o'clock in the morning starts putting out on X that this bill is unacceptable to him. And then, according to reports, Musk and Ramaswamy are in contact with the speaker, talking to him about what a difficult position he is in to try to get this done. And then, of course, they came out publicly opposing it. They're two private citizens. They're not in the government. Al is quite right. They don't understand. You know, think they understand what's in a $1.7 trillion budget for the Department of Health and Human Services? No, I don't think so, because they're not interested in that sort of thing. The only way to get these done is to have some measure of goodwill. I doubt that the Democratic leadership is really prepared to come in and help Johnson put this back together again, because they had a deal, and the White House says they had a deal, and these are the people in government that have to sort this out. But chaos is what's desired. And all the other thing, and Al mentioned it, but inserting the debt ceiling into the discussion was new, and Trump's demand that be raised is, out of the blue, not something that was under negotiation. And furthermore, Trump then introduces this notion that he's going to challenge Republican senators who don't support him in elections 2 years from now. I don't know how many times you can play that card, by the way, before Republican senators say, thanks, but no thanks. So I think, welcome to the future with this sort of chaotic approach to things. But, these kinds of statements, these kinds of initiatives they're taking have real consequences. You can say these things at a rally. You can say these things on Meet the Press. But if you disrupt the actions of government, you're affecting the lives of hundreds of millions of people, and there'll be a price to pay for it.
Hey, Craig, you mentioned Mike Johnson, and I almost feel sorry for the guy. I mean, we went through that debacle at the beginning of last Congress with Kevin McCarthy. Johnson's going to have a 1-vote majority in the House. So that means if one Republican votes against him for Speaker, he's gone. And Trump doesn't seem to give much of a rat's ass about him. He just, he plays him like he's a little toy.
If he's gone as the Speaker, as we go into 2025, who does Trump think is going to put this package together again?
Yeah,
it's not going to be Eddie Harris, I'll tell you that.
But as we've seen, Dave probably wants to go into the cabinet. But as we've seen with the cabinet appointments, he doesn't think about those things. He just does it.
Hey, I actually don't want to go into the cabinet nominees just yet, but
Okay.
I think this this early chapter, gives you an indication about the influence that somebody like Elon Musk has. I mean, I can't think historically of any other example where something is so transparently intertwined, where not only is he against this budget deal, but he's threatening through X to punish those who disagree. I mean,
Well, and he's taking his cause public, as you say, through X and through the media. You know, the only example that I know of where a private citizen put a group together was the Peter Grace Commission back in the Reagan era. But they worked with cabinet offices and departments and agencies, and they worked quietly and privately, with kind of in pretty much leak-proof fashion. They looked at lots of ideas that were public. They looked at lots of ideas that were controversial. Some of their work didn't go anywhere, but the work went on without them interfering with the actions of government agencies and a budget process while they were at it. And when they made their findings known, some were adopted, some were not. But there is no parallel to someone who has little understanding of the federal government in terms of Elon Musk, but access to reach millions of people anytime he chooses to through X. And it's not clear now whether their work is going to be quiet and private. It looks to me like it's not. When they come up on an idea, they're going to go broadcast it to hundreds of millions of people.
yeah.
Well, I actually think there are probably a number of examples where private citizens, private groups have had enormous influence on what a president does. But as Craig says, it's not done in this sort of blustery way. At the Democratic Leadership Council and the Progressive Policy Institute, we worked with Bill Clinton for 4 years, 3 years on the agenda that he ran. We shaped it, but then you do your idea, you hand it over, and the government processes work, and we have to fight it through Congress and all of that. These people don't have any sense of how a democratic process works and how a Congress works. One of the things that, I think that makes it different when a businessman comes into government is Congress is not, I'm sure on some corporations, there are very strong boards and they can get into fights with the CEO, but Congress is different than a board. Congress, every member of Congress has his or her own political base, and that makes it a different deal. A lot of governors, when they come, I don't know if Reagan had this problem. I think Clinton did at the beginning. You don't understand that Congress isn't like a state legislature, because again, that when you have your own political base, when you raise your own money, you have a little more independence. Now, the Republicans in Congress seem to, be willing to be bullied around. I mean,
Craig, you have the last word.
Well, so I want to just pick up where Al left off, because people should recall, and I guarantee you Republican senators will recall, that Trump wasn't all that good when he primaried somebody, getting his candidate elected in general elections. So the threat is so hollow, because the idea that you would go into races where the Republican is in a close race, challenge him in a primary, impose the MAGA Republican candidate, and think you're going to win, history has not shown that's worked that well for Trump. And the margins are so close that if some of the Republican seats are flipped in 2026, that Trump's ability to govern is going to be even less. So I think we're going unfortunately, into this holiday season in turmoil. I suspect that Democrats will have every reason to say, look, Republicans, you figure it out and let us know when you got it figured out. And we may well go into the beginning of the year with a Trump, Musk, Ramaswamy shutdown. None of whom are in government until 2020. And even then, Musk won't be in government, nor will Ramaswamy. So,
hey, Dave,
unprecedented and chaotic. It's kind of a sad situation that you're in.
I guess I'm really troubled by what I've seen through this transition. I mean, I wrote a piece on Craig and our site saying that I always want a president to succeed, but this transition so far seems to be a revenge tour. And, and it's a revenge tour against a lot of the most important pillars of our democracy. And that's scary. I mean, he's going after the press, suing Ann Seltzer, the pollster in Iowa, because she got a poll wrong. That's just plain intimidation. Disney forcing ABC to settle on a really frivolous libel suit.
Yeah.
The billionaires who run the big press institutions caving, Jeff Bezos did on the endorsement by the Post. I mean, we need a free press, particularly with an administration like Trump. It's against law enforcement. He's trying to undermine law enforcement with his appointment at the FBI, and to a lesser degree this time at Justice. It's not as bad as it was with Pam Bondi, but it ain't good.
Yeah.
Against the defense establishment, he's putting, a morally challenged, very inexperienced, probably incompetent guy, wants him to be Secretary of Defense. And then you have Tulsi Gabbard, who is an agent for I don't know whom, but not the United States, is the, head of intelligence. And now we have Robert F. Kennedy's chief staff guy who's appointing all his people wanting to get rid of the polio vaccine.
Yeah.
There was a measles outbreak in the Congo this week. Do we want to bring all that back?
Yeah.
I mean, the scary thing, for people like me, I say it's I've said all along, it's an existential threat against our democracy, and I think it is. But the scary thing is what it does to Trump's own supporters.
Yeah.
I mean, do they want their kids to be subject to measles and polio again?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can, do they want our defense undermined, national defense undermined? Do they want FBI agents, checking out people who just say something bad about Trump? I mean, this is pretty scary.
Yeah.
And to me, the real question of the next several months is who's going to stand up to him. Yeah. And the only people who can do that are in the Senate. Right. And so we'll see whether, I hope Craig's right that the threats of primaries prove hollow. But I said last week, and I'm going to say it every week until this changes, not one Republican senator has said he or she will vote no on the most outrageous of his appointments yet. Yeah. I'm waiting. And I worry about the hearings, because the hearings are a chance for those people to come in and say, well, we're not going to do all these crazy things we've done all our lives. Yeah. And then, give cover to the people to vote for him, and then go back and do the crazy things.
Thanks, Al, for that. That's all the time we have. Al, Craig Fuller, thanks so much indeed. We will see you next week.